This podcast is rated S for spoilers. Listener discretion is advised. Don't forget to view our spoiler-free companion video on our Half Past Podcast channel on YouTube. Half Past Podcast. This is episode 45, the movie review of The Secret Life of Pets. We will also be discussing the Storks trailer. I'm Graham Ricks, and here with me is my friend and co-pilot, Ian Jones.
So, can we talk about how I hate going to the movies when it's crowded and late at night?
Did that?
Man. So you know how someone says they're going to come over and they don't, and
yeah,
they threaten that they're going to be over in the morning. They say that they're going to come over in the morning.
Yeah.
To do something. Ironically, to look at a dog, because I rescued a bunch of dogs. And they were coming over to look at one.
You got two little dogs over there.
And they completely screwed up my entire day. So as a result, I could have gone and saw the first showing of this. And I ended up going at 7:30. On a Saturday night.
Oh, that's terrible.
My seats were terrible. I mean, I was there a half an hour early, and I was like, Graham's going to be pissed off if I walk out of this theater right now.
Oh, that would be terrible.
So I went towards the front, and I was like, okay, I'll watch a third of this movie, and then come back and watch it from the other side of the screen.
That was a completely different experience for me. I actually watched it after work on Friday. So I saw like the 4:10 showing. So there was like nobody there. I love when I'm able to catch the Friday showing sometimes. It's awesome. God, I can't believe you did that. You're known for going for the first showing on like a Saturday.
I was not happy about it. I knew the pain that was coming down.
Yep. It's awful.
The
trailer for this week we have is the Storks trailer. So this is going to be Warner Brothers Animation Group is what the banner they're going
WAG.
under now. Yeah. That's the banner they're going under now. So the last movie they did was the Lego movie, which was really good. I thoroughly enjoyed the Lego movie. So I'm hoping this one's actually pretty good too, but judging from the trailer, it looks like a very standard animated movie.
Yes, it does.
Doesn't it?
I don't like that. I mean, that's a good way of describing it, but I don't like that moniker. Like, that shouldn't be a standard animation movie, but yeah, that's apt.
Yeah, right?
The one thing I was going to say about it is there's this fight scene in it that happens where they're trying to be incredibly quiet.
I think that's going to be the best scene of the movie.
Yes, I agree that it has to be, but it reminded me of an amazing movie that you and I love.
Yes.
And of a scene where I was laughing so hard that I completely lost my ability to breathe. And I thought for sure I was going to have to leave the movie theater to recover. And it's one of those times where like something so funny that it hits your giggle zone.
Yep.
And you cannot stop laughing at it. And that's in the movie The Other Guys.
Yes.
When they start fighting at that funeral.
Yes.
And they're trying to be super quiet and respectful. And so they're like whispering to each other while they've got each other in headlocks, and the cops have like formed a circle around these two detectives who are fighting and rolling around on the ground. And it just is,
that movie has so many great little scenes that are just like, I freaking love The Other Guys.
I know.
It seems like a movie that you wouldn't really like. Like, it seems like a standard kind of normal comedy, but it's got all this stuff in it that makes it so much better. And then, like, I swear, every time I watch that movie, it just gets better. Like, I just like it even more.
Like, you keep picking up on little stuff that's just like,
yeah.
Like, it's just fun. It's hilarious throughout.
Yeah, it is.
And That movie has two scenes that made me turn absolutely blue in the face from losing all the air out of my lungs. The other one is that slow motion scene where The Rock and Samuel L. Jackson jump off this building, and there's nothing there.
Nope, aim for the bushes.
Aim for the bushes. And there's just nothing but pavement there. And then you cut to that scene where like Mark Wahlberg's giving him crap. There wasn't even an awning in that direction. They fell 4 stories. And I just absolutely lost my mind in the theater.
It's a great movie, man.
God.
If anybody hasn't seen it,
I could talk about every scene in that movie, I think.
Definitely watch The Other Guys if nobody's seen it. It's just such a... Like, give that one a shot. It doesn't seem like it's good, but it is so good.
Oh. It is.
Oh, man. You got anything else for the Storks trailer?
No, I just really wanted to talk about The Other Guys, which is why I recommended Storks.
All right, well, I guess we'll go ahead.
I really wanted to talk about a movie that came out years ago, back in 2010.
I guess we'll take a little break then, and then we'll get into The Secret Life of Pets.
Let's play some music.
Right.
Oh. That's not
even the right music.
That's not the right music.
Terrier named Max regularly invites his friends to hang out at his place while his owner is gone, but his quiet life is upended when said owner also takes in Duke, a stray mutt who Max instantly dislikes. That was a tough one.
Yeah. Wow. She sells seashells by the seashore.
It's funny because I'm usually pretty good with the
are you?
Yeah, with the tongue.
I like listening. Good read. You jerk. You jerk with a beard.
Oh, nice. So what the heck?
You bearded jerk.
Now everybody in the audience knows I have a beard. They're gonna be.
And he's wearing this awesome RoboCop shirt, which
I know,
is like
right?
so cool and vintage. And
I got it.
Like, what are you wearing right now?
I got it from Loot Crate, which I would love to have as a sponsor for the podcast, but you know, we're not nearly big enough for that. But seriously, Loot Crate's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm thinking about spending some money irresponsibly on that service.
This movie's directed by Chris Renaud, who did Despicable Me and Despicable Me 2 and the Lorax movie.
I thought that name sounded familiar.
Yeah, it's I couldn't think of who he was, but he definitely sounded familiar when I saw his name on screen, and I'm like, man, who is that guy? And then now that I looked it up, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I remember him. So he's starring Louis C.K. as Max. He directed the movie Pootie Tang.
He did, yeah.
Yes, which a lot of people don't realize that, but that was one of the movies he's directed. And he also was in American Hustle, but obviously he's probably most known for his TV show Louie and being just a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, he's pretty damn hilarious. And the funny thing about Pootie Tang was he pretty much... Because I think he put so much of his own money into it. He was not going to have, because of the lack of success, he wasn't going to have anything to do with the other side of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
And I think that's really crazy that we may not have gotten Louis out of it or some of these other things.
Yeah, it's entirely true. It's kind of crazy how things work out sometimes. Eric Stonestreet is Duke. He was in Almost Famous, The Island, but he's probably most known for being Cam from Modern Family.
Yeah, I actually thought he was miscast in this.
Yeah.
As Duke, just because of how the character looks.
Yeah, right? I could agree with that. Kevin Hart is Snowball, who's been just in a ton of stuff lately. We've been talking multiple times on the podcast how Kevin Hart's just in everything now. And the ones that I'll say is Think Like a Man, Grudge Match, and Ride Along. Jenny Slate is Gidget. She was in This Means War, The Lorax, and Zootopia, of course. She was the little sheep character in Zootopia. Ellie Kemper is Katie. She was in The Office, Bridesmaids, and The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, which is one of those shows that almost didn't happen because of the networks did not want that show. And it's had a lot of success on Netflix now, so it's kind of funny how that works.
It has, I think, one of the better themes. Have you ever heard the theme? Have you watched the show?
No, I haven't watched any of The Unbreakable Kimmy
The show's
Schmidt.
pretty damn good. It's got some awesome characters in it, but the theme song, the show's about girls who escape, like one of those guys who like kidnaps women and keeps them for years and years.
Okay.
So they finally get free, and like the neighbor who figured out something was going wrong was like this black guy in a trailer home.
Yeah.
And he gives like this ridiculous, like he's like the hero because he, even though the girls are really survived the harrowing experience, but he's the one who called the cops finally.
Yeah.
And he gives this hilarious interview. Like, it's just like he's almost crazy how he's talking in this interview. And everything they do, they take into, and they morph into this YouTube type remix thing. And it turns into this incredible opening song.
Wow.
where they just take his rant and they turn it into this awesome theme song.
Wow.
So it's worth a listen to just to...
I'll have to give that a listen.
Yeah. I love hearing it. Like, if I could just listen to that on my... Just even the song, it would put me in a good mood. Like, it's that great. Good. All right.
The last one we're going to have on here is Albert Brooks as Tiberius. He was in Finding Nemo, The Simpsons, and the movie Drive. And he's been an actor for a very long time.
Ah, yes.
I guess that's the last character, so we're going to take another quick break here, and then we're going to get into the quirks and likes. All right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jones, we're back with our quirks and likes section. Let's go ahead and start with my quirks as usual. Yeah. The first thing I have to say about this movie is that I have a huge problem that the beginning of the movie is pretty much the entire
that was like the thing. If I had to write it in red and mark it up as a term paper.
When you watch the previews for this movie, it is the beginning of the movie.
Yes.
Which is just the worst.
And
oh man.
And it's not to jump all over your thing, but because I had this too in big bold letters. First of all, it wasn't funny because we saw the damn previews for this all the time. The marketing for this was insane.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, the opening to this movie is basically one of the trailers.
Yes,
and
it is.
I think they blow a lot of their gags early on in the movie.
Yes. It's quite a bit of a problem with this movie. So I couldn't believe it when I watched it. I was like, wow, so this is actually, the trailer is the beginning of the movie, and I couldn't believe it. I was just sitting there, I'm like, man, we've already seen this. So like, it's just like the worst. I can't believe, I don't think I've ever seen a movie do that before.
Especially since because of the amount of movies you and I have gone to, we've seen the same trailer
a lot
over and over again.
Yes.
So it is very concerning to all of a sudden see that the first few minutes are right out of, right out of that trailer.
Yeah, it's disappointing. The other thing that I have a problem with this movie is the story is very slim on plot. It's really thin, which also makes the movie incredibly short. The movie's I believe it's 86 minutes long, so it's a little less than an hour and a half. So the movie's really short, and it feels that way. To me, it feels like it's more of an extended animated short as opposed to a theatrical released movie.
That's interesting. It kind of reminds me of the Looney Tunes, the '60s Looney Tunes that they used to do.
Yeah, right.
That would sort of be like one shots where they might have a character talk who didn't talk, Bugs Bunny, for example. There was that one year where Warner Brothers and was going head to head with Tom and Jerry. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on who does Tom and Jerry, and I feel really bad about that right now.
Oh, wow.
But they both ended up submitting the same animated short where they were both playing the piano, and it made no sense for Bugs Bunny to be playing a piano
it is.
at a concert going after a cartoon mouse.
Yes, it doesn't.
Like that's really out of character for him.
Which actually happens sometimes in the entertainment industry, where the people will just have the same idea at the same time, and it's really unfortunate, but it does happen.
Right.
So,
and I mean, they were embarrassed. Like Warner Brothers had egg on their face because of it. Like, what the hell were you guys thinking?
Yeah.
And then that exact same year, Tom and Jerry did the same thing. But it made sense for Tom and Jerry. I mean, that's what those two characters do. So this kind of when you mention that, this almost seems like a movie where, if Max was an animated character who had these adventures, like this would have been one extended episode where she gets a new dog.
Yes. You are 100% right about that. Like, that's probably the best way to describe it. I was trying to figure out a way to describe it, but you hit the nail on the head right there. That's exactly how it feels. So it seems like it's a character you probably should already know and you've already been on adventures with. And this is just one of them. And that's very true. And it's just kind of weird to have that kind of feeling for just a theatrical released movie. Like, it's awkward.
It reminds me of that bulldog character that they would do from time to time.
Yeah,
and
from Warner Brothers.
Yeah, with the kitty.
Yes.
Who all of a sudden would have this kitten who would follow him around, and then he would like try to protect this cat from other dogs.
Yeah.
This innocent little cat.
It's exactly like that. So it's interesting that you say that. The other thing I want to say is that I'm trying to figure out, and maybe you can help me on this. Is there an actual point to having the Pops story part in this movie with the older dog that's paralyzed? Because they're trying to find Max, and then they decide he's like, well, I know a guy, and so they go and get Pops, and he actually tries to get involved with they travel through the city to get to where Snowball is, Kevin Hart's character. But then they realize that he's just nuts and they just leave. And the only thing that's used for that whole scene is that Snowball now realizes that they're friends with Max and he's trying to find where Max is. So then he goes after them, but then they don't know where Max is.
Right. I mean, I think the only reason for having him, because you're right, it's essentially a busted mission.
Yeah.
But those animals are all domesticated animals, and they don't know the city.
Yes.
So the idea of going to a bloodhound who could, use his nose and navigate, to me makes sense.
Yeah, but he doesn't navigate to find Max. He navigates. He doesn't even really. He knows the city, and he goes.
He knows the city.
The thing that he goes to is Snowball, because he realized that these group of non-domesticated animals might know where he's at.
Right. Yeah.
But that's a failed mission. So it's like that whole sequence just doesn't quite make sense to me.
I mean, you figure, and I mean, it is one of those things to where one of my big points with this movie is kind of along these lines where it is it's like it is an animated movie. There is a bit of a suspension of disbelief, but I firmly believe that there's no way those animals get as far as they do if he doesn't get them to the sewer. Now, what happens now, I think where there's a bit of a missed opportunity is had the pets left something behind there, which they did, the collars didn't come back into play.
No, it did not.
And had they come into play there, maybe it would have made more sense because he could have gotten a scent.
Yeah, that would have made more sense to me.
And so, I mean, there are some little connected dot issues, I think, to where, you're right. Well, do you even need this character? And my only argument would be yes, simply because there's no way those animals make it as far as they do without someone who knows the city.
Makes sense. I actually got to let you go ahead and go. That's pretty much my main three, so let's see what you got, man.
Well, yeah, so we touched on the first one that they, I thought that visually this was light on laughs, and so I was disappointed that they did an awesome job marketing this movie, and I'm sure it's going to make a ton of money.
Yeah, it'll probably make some cash
because of their efforts there. But I think they, I think they blew too many of their gags in the trailers, and that's always one of those things that you and I talk about. Like, do you show the thing that's the funniest? Or do you give all those scenes away in a comedy to get people to go and see it?
Yeah, it's one of those things where as a studio or whatever, when they're trying to market something they need to make money off of and everything, it's a delicate balance that they have to try to do in order to make the decision on how they're going to do it. So it's it's kind of weird how that works out, but it kind of is what it is.
Are all dog walkers incompetent? Because I'm starting to think that they are.
I couldn't believe he was just kind of like 1, 2, and then just like what?
I mean, how do you forget? How do you lose the biggest dog that you have? For start, like maybe one of the littler ones.
That's terrible. That was a terrible.
That's pretty
scene.
Terrifying, right?
Yeah, right.
I'm not super thrilled about having to see Chloe's butthole the amount of times that we had to.
That is a very weird, like, from like an animation standpoint, where somebody had to sit there and actually put that in there.
Yeah,
it makes absolutely no sense why you do that. None of the other animals have it. It's like a very strange creative decision to do that. It's kind of like when you watch Batman and Robin and there's nipples on the bat suit. You're just like, why would you make that decision?
That's very good, though.
It's just kind of like, well, there's no reason to put this in here. It just makes it worse.
Rubber nipples on a bat suit.
Yeah, it's weird to me.
You can't look away from it.
So I forgot about that. You've reminded me, and
it's like one of the first things too that I saw, and I was just like, oh boy, I better not forget. I have to remember this, and then they did it again. So firmly cemented.
Yep.
The ending drove me nuts, and I talked about this in Finding Dory, and now I'm starting to wonder if I go back and look at how many animated movies that have animals in it where they end up driving freaking cars.
Yeah.
They aren't anthropomorphic, and I get that this is an animated movie, but I mean, it's such a sellout kind of thing to do that it almost annoys me as much as just having them dance at the end of the movie. Because it doesn't make it...
I freaking hate that.
I know, but it doesn't... And that's really a huge problem. That's an epidemic, and that's widespread in so many animated films that this is the ending that we have. We're just going to dance. Even Shrek does that.
Yes.
And it's like, give me a break. But yeah, we just saw this in Finding Dory, and to see it happen again at the end of this movie, and this isn't Zootopia. They're not driving cars.
Well, they're not anthropomorphic.
They're regular animals. Yeah. So that really pissed me off.
Well, it's funny that you said that, because when I was watching it, I was definitely thinking, God, Ian's going to hate that. It's a problem. I can see why you have a problem with it, but To me,
boy.
that is a very suspension of disbelief type thing. It doesn't even bother me that much.
There has to be some other way of dealing with it. And then they're in a taxi cab. Why not?
Yeah.
I just don't get it.
All right, you got anything else?
No, that's it for me as far as quirks go.
Okay, so I don't have very many likes for this movie, and it's funny because I do not think this movie is a bad movie. It's just very light on everything. But I have one like, and it's kind of a weird like. It's I really enjoy Snowball as a character and Kevin Hart's just over the top version of this character.
Yeah.
The thing about it is like it's a weird like because he's so over the top and everybody else is just so boring that it's like jarring with him. But he just does such a great job through the whole movie.
Well, I mean, yeah, I would argue that, I mean, his vocal performance is incredible. It might even be, he might even get an Academy Award nomination for it when it comes time to vocals.
No way.
You don't think so?
No,
I mean,
it's a
really good vocal performance.
It is a good vocal performance, but I just don't think they would give that
for
this movie.
Right.
Yeah, I just don't think they do that.
Well, I mean, that's one of those weird categories where people can slip by.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
A lot of people forget that they give one out for vocal performances. Even Brad Bird got one.
Yeah, he did.
For doing that character in The Incredibles. So he's really good, but I also thought Jenny Slate was really good.
Okay. With Gidget.
Yeah, and I thought Gidget had a really cool texture to her voice, but I thought those two were the strongest. And I thought that Eric Stonestreet fell flat to me.
Yeah, he did. And then Louis C.K. just wasn't. There wasn't anything good or bad about his performance.
I mean, he was just even.
Yeah, it was dead even.
Just, like, it's like, well, he's Max or whatever, and a lot of times we don't like. It's funny in animated movies how often we don't like the main character.
Yeah,
I think that's just sort of
happens a lot. It's kind of unfortunate. I'm not sure how that happens, but there's definitely some where it's just like, man, that guy's not that interesting. Yet the movie will still be okay or whatever.
Right, yeah, it still works.
Yeah, it still works. So that's really that's all I had for my likes. Okay. I really thought Kevin Hart was actually really good, and he was surprisingly good, I think so. So
I really liked this Falcon character. How he was animated and how he kept eyeing everything because he wanted to kill all these little critters.
Yes, he did.
And I thought it was incredibly clever how he was just like clutching that gerbil.
Yeah.
And like the gerbil thinks he's like real friendly, but he's like putting his giant eye right on him like, hey, how you doing, little guy? I'm going to eat you later.
Which,
kind
again,
of a thing.
Is another thing that's probably pretty good about this movie is I thought stuff like that, like animation, just some of the little things like him, like his eyeball getting really big and just like having that little bit of character tossed into each character, I thought was pretty good from an animation standpoint. But
yeah, and so since it's Albert Brooks, I mean, I feel like we have to talk about the greatest villain of all time, Hank Scorpio. Who just gets away. He's still at large.
Oh man, when they announced the Simpsons movie, I was really hoping that he'd be like the villain, but they went a totally different direction. But I just love that character.
He's a different kind of villain.
Yeah, I just love that character, Hank Scorpio from The Simpsons.
And I like the fantasy too, the fact that the Falcon has this daydream where Gidget's riding on top of him, and then at the end he swoops down and grabs that squirrel or whatever it is, and like just the whole thing's crazy. And there were two fantasies where I just thought like, oh wow, why isn't more of this in the movie? There's like that scene
And then there's the hot dog scene.
And there's the hot dog scene.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, that damn falcon scene, like, was one of those, like, it hit my funny bone, and I thought I wasn't going to be able to stop laughing about it because it was just so ludicrous. Oh, how he comes swooping in, and it's like this awesome little daydream of a fantasy, and then he does something horrible right at the end. Swooping in with his talons.
Oh, that's good.
So yeah, Gidget and Snowball I thought brought real richness and texture there. But I think you're right. I think that Kevin Hart's performance as Snowball is just incredible, and it's almost worthy of like a spin-off kind of movie.
Oh wow, right? That would be interesting if they chose to do something like that.
So I wouldn't put it past them because it's Illumination.
Yeah.
You know, it's totally doable with that character. I also thought I thought that the animation, you know, the cities and the environment, I thought that the movie was light on gags, but I really felt like the visual stimulants were there.
Yeah.
To sort of lift it and carry it through. And, you know, I didn't even really notice the plot so much. Like, it didn't bother me like it did with Finding Dory.
Okay.
Because I thought that this one was much more colorful in comparison.
Okay.
So that's it for me as far as likes go.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and rate this sucker then.
Let's rate it.
I think it's a fun little, like, family friendly movie. I just don't think that it has enough in it to warrant to actually see it, but I do think people need to see the movie, so I'm going to say rent it. I really think, judging by this movie, and then the other one that we watched last year was Minions. It seems like Illumination Entertainment has found a niche of doing just kind of kid family friendly movies and doing them well enough to where you should get something out of it. So I'm just going to say that I feel like they found their niche, and they're probably going to continue to do stuff like this. So that's what I want to say.
I'm going to say see it.
Okay.
I thought that there was enough here. I think I'm a little disappointed that they blew so much of it in marketing, but
they did.
I think, for the Falcon and for Snowball and that ridiculous hot dog scene that they have, like, that to me brings it home. And there is some really good heart too, like with this. And it may be an emotional thing because I rescue dogs.
Yeah.
I think there's a pretty good message here when it comes to that.
I would say that that's probably okay to have that. It's not really driven home, so I don't know if they're particularly were trying to do that. But one of the things that I got from this movie is just, I think people who are like pet owners would probably love this movie more than somebody like me who's never had pets.
Gotcha.
And I've never been the one to rescue animals or anything like that for pet adoptions or anything like that. So, but I think that's what they were trying to do. Like, I think they were trying to get pet owners to come watch this movie, which is why it's called Secret Life of Pets. I think everybody else is just kind of whatever about it. But I think if you're definitely a pet owner, I definitely think that it's probably a good one to go see.
Yeah.
All right. So rent it, see it.
Rent it, see it.
All right, let's sign out.
That's the split.
If anybody wants to contact us, you can always contact us, our home on the web at halfpastpodcast.com. Go ahead, Jones.
What? You've been doing this all. So when did we change back?
I forgot to tell you that I wanted to change back.
God damn it. What? Go ahead, Jones. I was already kicking my feet up.
Nice.
Like us on Facebook. What the hell's with this change? I love how you mandated the change, and I questioned you on it. And you were like, well, you don't like doing this anyway. Me. Clickety clack clack.
Okay, all right.
And then you're like, go ahead, Ian. No. Back to the way it was. I'm reading these lines that say Ian.
Do the
clickety clack clack.
You know I don't do that.
Clickety clack clack.
Yeah.
See? You don't like reading these anyway. Yeah. We're gonna talk. Well, you're right. I don't like reading this last part, but sometimes it makes us laugh.
Hence why I decided to leave it in.
Okay.
I was like, okay, we need to go back to it.
Clickety clack clack.
Rate us on iTunes and Google Play.
We're on Stitcher and Libsyn.
Email us at halfpastcast@gmail.com. That's halfpastcast@gmail.com.
That's because some other dickhead has halfpastpodcast@gmail.com. I've
been trying to figure out a way that I can steal
to message that guy
somehow.
like, hey, release the damn email, bitch. And I love how Half Past Podcast still is missing an F after all these. Tweet us at Half Past Podcast.
Oh my gosh, I've never noticed that.
All this time it's been misspelled. And it's always
I like how you've never
me.
Mentioned it to me before.
I feel like I have, but like not this loudly before. Like right now I'm making a very loud point about this being misspelled. And like maybe I just muttered it in the past. This isn't. There's missing an F. Me. And you're just like, what? While you're like punching in something on the microwave back there. What is it? What? Me? You don't have an F. You're missing an F, and it's been this way, and you've never corrected it for
I'll
45
fix it.
freaking episodes or whatever.
I'll definitely fix it. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your support. God dang it. Next week, we're going to try to watch this Ghostbusters movie. Yep, we'll try to see how good that one is.
What have you
questionable
done?
via trailers, but...
What have you done, Paul Feig?
God, I really hope the internet isn't validated in this. I absolutely hate when the internet gets validated.
That director is going to look like an idiot if that's the case.
Yep.
And I hope it's a good movie, but
I hope it's a good movie also.
Is there completely negative? And what I just saw come across my Tumblr dashboard was a promotional shot that had all the girls sitting in the front on stools and all the guys, the living ones, in the background.
Yeah.
And why didn't they do that in any of the trailers? It just would have taken care of everything.
Yeah.
Just make one of the girls his daughter and no one cares. No one cares if one of them is one of the daughters.
Oh, man.
Picking up the mantle.
Yeah.
It's like, you morons. I don't understand. You knew this was a problem the second before there was ever even a cast.
Yes.
And I think it's probably going to be an amazing movie. And I love this cast.
I love the cast
These are like really talented, funny ladies here. So I love this cast and I can't wait to see this movie.
Yeah, I love the cast also.
I really hope they prove the haters wrong because it's like the most hated thing in YouTube's history.
Yeah, it is. And I just want it to be a good movie, and we can only hope. We'll see it in a week, less than a week. This is the Half Past Podcast. I'm Graham Ricks.
Jonesy.
See you next flick.